I have been interviewing some amazing people over the last couple of weeks. People that have motivated me and inspired me on my journey. I thought we'd go one step deeper in a fairly quirky way and introduce and interview someone who has been probably one of the most, actually the second most important person in my life, who is my husband, Jeffrey Rossely. So it will be interesting because a lot of people, I've made lots of new friends over the last 4 months, which is while Jeff and myself have been apart from each other. He's in Dubai and I'm in Australia. Lots of new friends, new followers on social media. A lot of people don't even know that Jeff exists. So we're
probably good.
So we're introducing Jeffrey, and do you know, I might learn something about Jeff today as well. I don't think I've ever interviewed him before, so I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't want him to interview me. So we shall start with the first question. Who exactly is Jeff Rossely?
Well, you should be answering that rather than me.
No, you're right. This is for you, Jeffrey, not for me.
Well, it's very simple. I'm male. I'm 69. I've had the good fortune or the misfortune of knowing you since 98. And I consider myself just a normal human being. So what's special to be answered in that context?
Is that it? Are you being serious?
Of course.
But who is Jeff Rossely inside?
Well, you can see me. I'm here in. You're not going to get a deep answer. Other people should answer those questions for you.
Why?
Because one's perception of oneself is usually through rose-tinted glasses, whereas other people usually don't have those sorts of images.
I would disagree with you there.
Anyway, that's your prerogative.
You still need to answer the question. It's going to be silent.
I can plead the Fifth Amendment if I was an American. I don't want to incriminate myself.
Okay, well, let's try different tacts. What are you most passionate about in life?
I mean, besides you, of course.
Of course, of course.
You would say I'm most passionate about work.
Mm-hmm.
And that I get a lot of my, if you like, self-validation through my ability at work. I would say work is a means of delivering on the abilities I've been blessed with. It's a means of applying my mind, which is always active or overactive. And it's something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. And as I've said before, probably in the 50 odd years I've supposedly been working, I don't think I've probably worked more than a year or two, which is usually when it's a situation which is unpleasant and it's time to change one's direction. The rest of the time, one would have to say it's pure enjoyment.
Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering exactly what you do, because if they don't know Jeffrey Rossely, you will have to explain what you do. And, you know, I explain to people over what you do, but I don't always know if I get it right. So can you explain exactly what you do job-wise?
Okay, I work in the property industry, at the front end of the industry in terms of conceiving and creating projects. Within the Australian context, Some of the projects would be Robina on the Gold Coast that I was involved with from its second year. The application of new ideas and new directions. In the Middle East, probably most people would know of Ski Dubai and Mall of the Emirates. So I was leading the teams that conceptualized those projects and being involved in their delivery. The Wave in Muscat, the first master planned private community in that country. The introduction of modern shopping centres into Egypt with the first 2 Carrefour projects in 2001, etc.
So when you say your abilities, that the abilities you have to do the job, what are those abilities? What are they?
Okay, first of all, you've got to have a set of basic skills and disciplines and understand how the property industry works, how things are done. But the key thing in any of this is the ability to think outside the box. So if we were just following on what was done in the past, everything could look the same. So it's the ability to take an idea, to take a principle, and to turn it around into something new and something different that hasn't been done before.
Interesting.
To me, yes. For a lot of other people, it would be boring.
So of all the projects you've done, because I know you used to spend probably 80% of your time on a plane. Obviously, that's not happening at the moment. Of all the projects...
I'm going through withdrawal symptoms.
Aren't we all? Blimey. Of all the projects you've done, which is the one that is close to your heart? Or do you have a couple? Do you have one that sticks out that you're proud of? And
well, I think in Australian context, Robina, which was a 2,500 hectare master plan community on the Gold Coast. In an international context, obviously Ski Dubai and Mall of the Emirates, which is one of the dominant shopping centres in the Middle East. But just the challenge of creating a ski slope at -6 with effectively real snow in the middle of the desert where the temperature can get to 50 to 60 degrees. So you have a fairly massive delta. And to see that for 15 years now, people to continue to enjoy something that was created.
I remember when we were in Madrid or Milan? Madrid, and you were drawing a diagram on a serviette, and I asked you what it was, and you said, oh, it's a fridge on its side, or it's a ski slope in the middle of the desert. And were we married then? No.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I was beginning to really worry about you, that you'd lost the plot a little bit. But that saying in Dubai, they said you can do everything in Dubai except for snow skiing. And then Jeff Rossely comes along and proves them wrong.
Well, it was the vision that Majid for Tame, and I had the ability to deliver on it. So, none of these things are one individual doing everything by themselves. Everything usually is about putting together the right team of people to give you the desired result.
So, talking about the right people, what are some of the values you've created for yourself as a leader to help people?
Well, I think the first thing that comes down in any team that you create or values is you've got to have respect for people, and you've got to have integrity in how you deal with situations, and you have to be honest in situations. Sometimes that's very painful for people. But unless you have an open, respectful relationship with people, then you're not building something that's durable.
So what are the challenges the biggest challenges that you've faced in your career? Oh, it doesn't have to be in your career, just in life. And don't say me. Because I know you.
So, I mean, you're taking all the punchlines away.
Sorry.
You told me I was supposed to do those. No, that's not fair.
That makes me sound like I'm giving you a debrief, and I have not done that.
I mean, the challenges are different. I mean, I think in any situation, in a business situation, for instance, you have to work on two fronts. You have to work where you're coming from a base of integrity, and you're hoping the other party's coming from a base of integrity.
Mm.
But you know, in many instances, that's not the case based on, you know, the past history of a group or that situation. So it's how do you deal with that and manage those things to get the result that you're looking to achieve. You can't walk away because that's not how you do business. So you have to manage situations where you may feel uncomfortable, and you have to try and get the right outcome in the right manner.
So that's the biggest challenge you've got.
That's always the biggest challenge, because if you lose your own integrity or you lose your own sense of values, then you lose the person you are.
But then that goes back to question number one, which you didn't answer.
Well, that's because I don't necessarily want you to know who I am.
I think well, I can tell people, but that's not really what we're supposed to be doing.
No, but well, if you don't know now after 20-something years, you never will.
Yes, I know who you are. But okay, question for a person who is very passionate about their work. What advice would you give them, as in leadership advice, if they're starting afresh? And like with you, obviously it's property. And what advice would you give them on staying on the right track?
Oh, I mean, the first piece of advice is find out where your God-given talent is and try and work in that area.
Mm.
Right? Because otherwise you're just working to bring in money, right? Not working for enjoyment. Work should be enjoyable. That's fundamental issue. The second thing is don't compromise on your values. It's very easy in business to get, you know, distracted and led down a path which you think is going to benefit you, but in the end it undermines you.
Mm.
It's always about application. You have to put the time and the effort and the energy in if you're going to achieve anything. And it doesn't matter how many times you run into a wall, eventually the wall will get knocked over if you keep approaching it the right way.
Mm. So, question for the future. What does the future, I know it's difficult for everybody at the moment because no one really knows with COVID. What are your future plans? What ideas do you have that you want to move forward? Do you have any projects that you...
Oh, well, let's step back. The world today is different than it was at the beginning of the year, and our expectations have all got to be looked at in the context of we're uncertain as to how long this COVID emergency, as people call it, will go on. It's had major impacts on the economy.
Mm.
In some of the economies, some of the Middle East economies were already overheated or coming off, so this has just made things worse. Tourism for the foreseeable future is, you know, going to be heavily hit, and things are going to be much more locally focused. So for the future, you know, the first priority for us is to get back together. So come back to Australia.
Mm.
spend some time on the farm,
which will be fun.
Which will be fun, and then see what opportunities there are. I don't think if you set out a plan which goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you actually achieve that, you're extremely lucky, because most times that I know, you get to 1, 2, and all of a sudden 7 appears, and nothing in between. You either make the jump or you don't. So in these times, I think the first plan is to continue to have faith and confidence, to look forward to whatever the door that's going to be opened, but you're not going to be able to predict that door at the moment.
No.
And, don't be surprised if it's something you've never thought of, or that you had no inclination that type of opportunity existed. Keep an open, flexible mind in these times, as you usually do in most situations.
Yeah. You've always been like that anyway, haven't you? Because you have to adapt every day to the changing scenarios in the Middle East and what happens. And
but look, there are people that like to have, if you like, boundaries and walls, and they feel very comfortable. Or if they don't have them, they go and create them. They create the box to do things within. There are other people that feel quite comfortable when they don't know where the boundaries are, or what the framework is, and they kind of roll with it. I suppose in that sense, I'm comfortable in a reasonable field of chaos, if you like. Too much order, becomes like a straitjacket, and you get bored. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be put between this wall and that wall.
That's probably why. Probably why we
definitely not put in a coffin.
We don't like going into a box. We don't like staying in a box. Actually, we don't like boxes at all. No. Anyway. So going back to question number 1.
I just told you. You see, you've got a structure that you're trying. You've got a structure that you're trying to get me to fit into again.
That totally depends on your perspective.
True.
I think based on the questions and the answers, people would have understood that you're a man of integrity, of faith, honesty, and you take every day as it comes, and you enjoy what you do, which is great. There was one question. There's a lot of people are in jobs that they don't enjoy. So you're blessed to be in using your as you said, God-given talents in a job which you absolutely love. And I can see that. And it's, we're both blessed that we do what we want to do. But there's lots of people who don't have that luxury of, if they maybe haven't had the right education, and it's not their fault. But what about those people that are stuck in jobs that they really don't like? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, first of all, thank you for answering question number 1 for me. I knew if I waited long enough, you would. So it's very difficult when you find yourself trapped in a set of circumstances, and in a role where basically you're doing it to put the bread and butter on the table. However, even in those circumstances, there are two attitudes that you could take. You can kind of moan and groan and work battle through, which means you probably enjoy it even less. Or you can say, okay, this is my circumstance at the moment. I will do the best I can in this particular role. I'm not enjoying it, but it's achieving an objective for me. and then you work out how you can move yourself out of that into something you do enjoy. But I mean, one of the key things is a lot of people actually don't know what their talent is or what they really enjoy, because they've not had either the opportunity to experience it, or they've not sat down and really thought what it is that they could do that they like doing. It's not everybody will be able to be in a role that they uses all of their talents or that they enjoy, but it's much better to make the best of a circumstance and be happy than to make yourself miserable.
Yeah.
And I think that's an attitude thing.
And to have vision.
Well, it's also, in this society, it's also a thing called envy, because you see so many people that have what you want or have more than what you want, and you want to be like them. You want to emulate them. That's not living your life. That's trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else.
Yeah. And you don't use your God-given talents if you're trying to be somebody else. And that's the world we live in. It's a world of comparison, and you compare yourself and want to be like that person. You drift off the road that God's given for you.
Well, I think it's one of the downsides of human advancement. I mean, it was very difficult. When I think when I was first growing up, there was no TV. So you didn't know what was, you had radio as the form of communication. You got the news on the radio. You couldn't see what the lifestyle of people were. There was no mass tourism, because there weren't things like the 747, which opened up the world to people. And if you wanted to go to London, UK, you either went on a cruise ship, which these days is probably a dirty word, or you flew with about 5 stops on the way, in a very expensive airplane. So the world has contracted, and everything has become much more visible to people. But those opportunities that, say, someone in America has are not the opportunities that someone in India or South Africa will most likely have.
Yeah. Is that why you don't like having televisions in the house?
No, I just think televisions, phones, everything is, someone sends you an email, they expect a reply within 24 hours.
And I know you definitely don't do that.
No. I mean, nothing can be that urgent in terms of business. Everything has now has to be instantaneous answers, instantaneous gratification, etc. That's just, I don't find that exciting or interesting.
That's what happens when you live in a push-button society, when you want everything like right now.
Yeah. I really like the one about the guy who realised he wasn't very patient. So he prayed to the Lord for patience. And you've heard this one before. Lord, give me patience right now. Right? I mean, that's the way everything has become. It has to be, actually, if I could have it yesterday, it'd be better than having it today.
That's one of my weaknesses. I'm impatient, but I'm learning not to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's one of the things, like my grandfather used to talk about, if you want something, you save up for it. These days, if you want something, you go and put it on the credit card, then worry about how you pay for it afterwards. And so it's just a different set of values and perceptions as to how things work.
Jeffrey, this has been an absolute privilege.
Has it? If you're lucky, you might get 5 minutes out of this that could be useful.
I hope those viewers will see Jeff Rossely in a totally different light. Well, there's a lot of people that don't know you, so that it's nice that they can see that you are a real person and that I am married to somebody, even though we are 11,500 kilometers away. I think that's what the...
What? Yes, this is the person that got on an aeroplane on the 8th of March and said, I'll be back before Easter. I should have realised, I should have asked what year.